What's up guys, Dan Wowak here. On today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to explore how to make a down and dirty, simple lean-to debris shelter. Alright, so as you can see, I started to collect some trees already, and I collected them from this row of trees behind me. Now, if I zoom the camera out a little bit, you can see it looks a little bit strange. There's all these real straight, small, little perfect saplings. So this is a hedgerow of birch trees. I don't know how it got here, but it's pretty unique. There's a ton of small stuff in there, and it goes on for close to a mile. It's an absolute bushcrafter's paradise. There's so much small stuff in there. But before you panic that I'm cutting a lot down, the bad part for the trees living in here is as the bigger ones continue to grow, a lot of the smaller ones die off and break. So even when I'm in here now trying to process some wood and get some branches out, a lot of stuff's just breaking because it's dead from this past growing season. So it's great to be able to harvest this stuff out here, but it's going to work great for our debris shelter. So let me get back to work. Listen, when it comes to building a debris shelter, time, okay, is what is of the essence. It's very important because if you're already in the situation where you're cold and it's starting to rain or it's starting to snow, you're already behind the curve, okay? And a debris shelter is not going to go up extremely fast. It's going to take some time, so you need to be aware of that and you need to pre-plan with that. That's the number one rule. Number two rule is that you don't want to pick materials in one spot and have to transport them extremely far for your next batch of materials. And you're going to see this as we go along. Where I collected the birch from, okay, to where I'm going to build my shelter is not far, okay? It's only 20 to 30 feet away. That is important, okay? If you are picking material in one spot and then you realize that the next layer, let's say in our case we're going to be using a lot of hemlock, is going to be your base layer on that shelter, and there's none for 400, 500, 600 yards, it's probably not a good idea to start building your shelter there. And I see that happen a lot with people. You need to be in a good location to start building your shelter. So now that I have my location picked, what I have to do is start to construct the frame of my shelter. Again, I'm looking super easy, super simple for this. So one of my favorite things to do is find something like this right here, a Y in a tree branch. This is gonna accept one side of my main beam on my lean-to shelter. All it requires is just a little bit of cleanup here. So not much, we're already cleaned up. We can get a stick in there and we're gonna be golden. So one thing that I always like to do when it comes to these Y branches is really get it that it's seated down low. If it's up too high, it's almost acting like a wedge once we add some weight to it. So that really simply can get taken care of by just trimming one or two sides down and flattening them out, okay? So just get out your cutting tool there and have at it. So just smooth that one side out, see where you're fitting in at. So you can see how much better that's already fitting in there. I'm just going to take this side down just a little bit yet. All right, there we go. So we didn't weaken up the board too much getting it in there like that, but it is going to help with not splitting this out. You just also want to make sure that's good and steady and strong, which it is. Okay, so one side secure, but now the second side, you might be wondering, well, what are we gonna do? How are we going to get this thing to stand up? And I'm gonna use a tripod for mine. I think it's quick, it's easy, I'm cutting branches anyway, so I'm gonna get the job done like that. But your tripod has to be the right height. So this is what I found you should do. Get your tripod sticks together and then look at the height, okay, of where that Y branch is. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to go up about 1.5 feet. Now that does seem like a lot, but remember we can open the end of that tripod up and that's going to give us some adjustment. If we tie this tripod at the same height as this, as soon as we open it, it's automatically lower. We're never gonna get a straight ridge line. So go about 1.5 feet higher. So we're gonna be tying up somewhere around here. Full tripod lash, everybody. Don't be slackers. I know we all love that Coalcracker quick lash, but this is gonna actually support some weight, so I want a full lash on this one. So I got my tripod set up. My ridge pole, as you can see, is up. Now I did make this higher. 2 reasons. Number one, my Y branch in my tree, okay, was a little bit higher than I wanted, but it was there, way easier to work with. Secondly, I wanted to build this shelter so I can come back and utilize this. So if it's bad, foul weather, or I want to hunt out of this, I can literally just sit under there. It's not just a sleeping type shelter. So we are going to be doing some work in it. So we're going to get after it, start working. It's going to be great. This thing is coming along fast and easy. Okay, so what I've done now is I went ahead and I measured how long one of my back ribs need to be for my shelter. Once I did that, I came over here and I made myself somewhat of a jig or a length indicator, okay? What that's going to do is allow me to bring in everything that I cut. I place it against the base of that tree and out to this log, okay? And then if it's real big, I can just go ahead and give it a little cut like that. I can either continue to cut it through or just easily snap it over my knee and throw it in the good pile. So this one, too short, I just put it in the short pile. And then I'll just continue this process. I pull in a stick, I true it up, give it a little whack. I get about 3/4 of the way through, give it a break, and I'm good to go. Short pile. So this makes really good, quick, fast work of something like this. With longer branches like this one, okay? I'm gonna come in here, I'll give it a cut. Give it a break, that goes in that pile. I can still continue this process. So I just pull it in further, same thing. That one I can just cut right through. I'm in the good pile. These little scrappy ends I don't use too much, so I just throw them in the short pile. Okay, so all the ribs now, what I call at least ribs, are up on the structure. So we have our main cross member, we have our tripod holding up one side, and we have all the ribs in place. Now, when you build a debris shelter, there's a lot of different factors you can take in consideration, which we already talked about. How much time do you have? How elaborate do you want it to be? What's the ultimate purpose of it? In my case, I'm gonna be putting a lot of hemlock boughs on top of this. I don't need these ribs touching each other. I don't need a thick wall of wood behind me. All I need is something to block the wind, and it's so cold now, if it does any kind of precipitation, it's going to be snow. So I'm not too worried about rain or anything like that. So for right now, this is going to be fine. We can always add more in later on down the road. But even if you put pine boughs on here and then later on, as everything melts out, you put leaf matter on here and more pine boughs, that's going to be more than enough of a structure to take care of it. Sides, front, you can depend on, again, how elaborate you want that to go. We're going bare bones, down, dirty, super easy right now. So when it comes to collecting boughs like this, usually breaking with your hand is the easiest way. I feel like as soon as you bring out an axe or a saw or a knife and you start messing with that above your head, you're just prone for injury. So just break them with your hands. It's quick, it's easy, and as you break them, you can keep them in order. So I have all the branches on one side and all the goodies down on the other, and then it's really easy and quick to just put on top of our shelter. Now, a couple key factors in the back of this shelter that I want to point out. I started at the bottom and then I worked my way up to the top. The reason for that is we want it to overlap like shingles on a house, okay? So we don't want any type of precipitation or snow getting underneath. We want it to shed off and then it would actually slide onto the next section, okay? So as the snow comes down here, it just very easily is going to shed away that way. The other thing is the branches normally grow upward, okay? So there's an upward sweep to them. So whenever you place them on your shelter, flip them the opposite way. So they're growing like this in nature, upward. We want to lay them on our shelter downward. That gives a way smoother finish to the back side of your shelter, and it's just gonna make it that much nicer. All right, so we are on our way to debris shelter success. What we got going on, a couple things, is we got pretty nice coverage, not as thick as I would like. If it was going to rain, we would definitely need way more than that. But again, think of the environment that you're operating in. No rain right now, it would be snow. Of course, that snow would melt over time, so you're gonna get some seepage through, but we're blocking the wind. If it would snow, we're blocking the snow off of us. So down and dirty, this was about an hour and 15 minutes it took me. Now that's a little bit of filming time and a little bit of messing around, staring into space and just thinking about life and stuff. But in general, about an hour to get something like this up and situated. And that's why I think it's so important that we also always think about carrying a shelter component, but it's good to understand how to do something like this. All right, so I got the fire going now. Literally, this shelter has knocked down the wind. I mean, I get a little bit because I'm sitting out in front, but from this direction, the way it was before, it's awesome. So I'm doing really, really well with this shelter setup itself. Again, we're looking at a down and dirty, quick style debris shelter setup. So lean-to for your environment. Now, a few things I know people are gonna ask about. How much gear did it take? I literally just used this, okay, which we'll talk about here in a second. But overall, I mean, it's utilizing the debris and the environment around you to build these things, okay? We did use a little bit of paracord on top of that for the tripod, but otherwise, you're good to go. And then, of course, fire starters. So what I used here, and there's a little bit of a story behind this for me. When I first started, if you've been following my channel for a while, I used to do a thing called question and answer. You ask me any question, I give you every answer, okay? It was great. And one thing that asked a lot was like, what was my first bushcraft style knife or blade? And to be honest, it was an old 12-inch machete. My uncle bought it for me when I was like 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. My parents wouldn't let me use it for the longest time. And then I carried that thing everywhere. Anytime I went in the woods, any camping trip, I always had it along with me. And then I started buying bushcraft knives a little bit later in life, and there you have it. I put the machete off to the side. But Gerber came out with this. It's called the Double Down. I like to use different gear every so often, just for the simple fact I see different people come through my school with different needs, okay? And some people don't want to carry an axe with them. They just want to carry a small pocket knife for hunting. But if you get in a situation you need to do something like this, or make a stretcher, or cut larger lumber, although you can do it with a small pocket knife, that's fine. Something a little bit larger might fit your needs more, okay? So this thing folds down and it is pretty cool. It folds down like this, it's all locked up, so it's not gonna open up in your kit, it's not gonna stab anybody. You just hit the 2 sides and it boom, flips open, and then there's a bottom lock, and it's good to go. Made in the USA. So this thing is great for something like a bug out bag or a hunting kit. I keep this in my trap basket now if I don't have my axe with me and I'm just blasting in and out of places, and then you're good to go with it. So that's what I use for this entire build. So understanding how to utilize different tools always a great thing for us out here. And look at, I built a great shelter that I can definitely spend some time in, be protected from the elements, and be good to go. So I'm gonna warm up, listen to the wind blow around before we have a big snowstorm headed in real shortly here in Pennsylvania, like in the next day. So I'm excited to get back here and check this out after the snowstorm and see what's up. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, just think about it. Simplicity is key, okay? You don't need a lot of tools, and you can get the job done really easily. So this was Dan Wolak of Coalcracker Bushcraft. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com, and until the next video, stay in the woods.